sleep lost more lean muscle mass and lost less fat. And the group that got more sleep lost more fat and held on to their lean muscle mass more. So looking at not just sheer weight, gain or losing, but even among same weight, same increased comorbidities, and even with weight loss, we've got a healthier weight loss when people were getting adequate sleep. And that's especially important. I mean, all of this is obviously very relevant to our, to our patient population. It's a critical part, even if you're losing a lot of weight, even if we took obesity out of the issue, or I've had surgery, I'm losing, 10 pounds a month. But what are you losing? Are we losing fat or are we losing muscle? Because we want to lose fat, not muscle. So that sleep still becomes an important issue. This is just an interesting graphic demonstrating looking at non-Hispanic whites, blacks, Hispanics, and other cultures, moving from, the white bar is underweight, the black bar is class 3 obesity. As you go along the left to insufficient sleep, right? So the days of what they perceived as getting insufficient sleep, the higher number of days of insufficient sleep, the higher their obesity rating was. So people who with the highest obesity rating had more frequently reported times of insufficient sleep. And it's across the board with all races that they looked at. Okay, so why is there this correlation between our sleep and our metabolism and our body habitus? So we kind of broke it down into 4 sort of simple categories. Increased hunger, more hours in a day to eat, prompting people to eat less healthful diets, and then decreased energy expenditure. So we're going to kind of go through these a little bit at a time. We get a little bit scientific on you, but these terms are so popular in modern news that it's not that scientifically, it's not that esoteric anymore. But insufficient sleep affects hormones that regulate hunger. So they've consistently shown over and over and over again these changes in these hormones. Now, ghrelin and leptin are 2 really important hormones that affect your appetite. Ghrelin is a hunger-promoting hormone. And I always remember, I have to find ways to remember things ever since a kid. That's how I got into med school. I found ways to memorize things. My way of remembering that ghrelin is the hunger hormone is I think of growling. And that's why I have a picture of a tiger there, because I picture this just ravenous, growling, hungry animal. And so ghrelin sounds like growling. So anyway, just in case, you're in conversation, you're trying to remember which one does which. Picture this, hungry tiger. I think that might actually be blood on this chin. Anyway, this has been shown to increase with sleep restriction. So when you're sleep deprived, your ghrelin levels go up. Ghrelin makes you hungry. So you've got an instant cause for part of that association with not getting enough sleep, increases your ghrelin, makes you hungrier, puts you in, at risk for obesity. Now, leptin is the opposite. Leptin is the hormone that contributes to feeling satisfied, not feeling hunger. And do you want to know how I remember that one? Leptin, I think of light. So if you have the 2 next to each other, you can easily remember ghrelin and leptin like light. So it is what makes you feel satisfied. And when you have sleep restriction, when you're not getting enough sleep, that hormone is decreased. So you're not getting that sense of satisfaction, satiety. So when you have a decrease in your satisfaction hormone and an increase in your hunger hormone, that is a perfect storm for weight gain. Another study looked at, this is kind of demonstrating when they took 1,000 people and, half the group got 8 hours of sleep, the other half the group got 5 hours of sleep. They found a significant increase in the body mass index in the group that was only getting 5 hours of sleep. Their leptin decreased by 15% and their ghrelin increased by 15%. I'm not going to explain this. I don't know the point of this slide is just to show you that it's complicated. These hormones do a lot of different things. They affect a lot of different parts of the brain, the nervous system, the adrenal glands, all of which facilitate the opposite of what we want to be doing. So we want to be very mindful of these effects because they have a huge impact on just basically everything that makes up your brain and your metabolism. Okay, second on our list was there are more hours in the day to eat, right? If we're not sleeping, but 5 hours a day, we're up 19 hours. So there's just more time to eat, right? I mean, you can eat at breakfast, then you eat at lunch, then you have dinner, then there's nighttime eating. There's just more hours to eat, and eating is a natural part of what we do throughout our day, and when we increase our day, we increase the eating opportunity time. So that's another problem is I'm just there. I'm just always around it, and so it's just more available. Thirdly, prompting people to choose less healthful diets. And we'll go into this in a little more detail later, but when we're tired and our body needs quick energy, and if we're not taking a nap to give it the energy it needs, it's going to go to food to get that energy. It's going to stimulate our appetite and make us crave carbohydrates and sugar, and we'll talk about why and how it does that in a little bit. But it needs good energy quickly, and so it causes a craving for those foods. Also, when we're sleep deprived, when we're too tired or too busy to plan a meal, shop, and cook. So we end up eating less healthful options, things that come in packages, things that are not made with whole grains, whole vegetables, natural foods. We buy things in packages that at some point we trust, at some point looked like, something from nature, but we're not really quite sure. We grab fast food. And we're in a hurry, so we tend to shovel food. So it's a setup when you're up all the time. It's often because you're busy or because you're stressed, and those things lead to not making good food choices. And then decreased energy expenditure. So, that's just it, right? Or just I feel like that sometimes. I can't do it. I can't do it. Because we're tired. I'm just tired. Our body temperature lowers. Our physical activity decreases because we're tired. We watch more TV when we're tired. We just don't have the energy that we need. And so again, our body stimulates hunger because we don't have the rest fueling our body like we need to. And so fatigue wins. Now, kind of jumping gears. So those are sort of those four categories of what is this basic connection between sleep and obesity. We're not spending energy, we're making bad choices, we're craving the wrong foods, we're exposed to food more. There are some other things related to food and obesity that I thought were worthy of being brought up. And one is obstructive sleep apnea. A lot of you may be familiar with this already, but it's basically recurrent obstruction of the airway while you're sleeping. You can see here that where the air is supposed to go in, and it's being obstructed right now there because the palate is sinking down to the back of the airway. And this leads to lower oxygen levels. And when we have low oxygen levels, we're aroused because that's a response of our brain to try to arouse us so that we'll breathe and get in some oxygen. So we're not sleeping deeply. Our body is continually trying to wake us up to get us to breathe. So it results in a chronic sleep loss and an increase in sympathetic nervous activity. The prevalence of this is very high, even in average weight adults, 24% of men have this. A lot of it is due to their neck structure, and 9% in women. And in severe obesity, that prevalence just skyrockets. And recent data, so we know obstructive sleep apnea can come from obesity, right? From having all that extra tissue there causing that obstruction. But we're also finding that the sleep apnea is worsening the obesity. So we end up kind of in this circle. The sleep apnea reduces our physical activity, right? We're tired, all those reasons we just talked about. It increases insulin resistance, we'll go through that, and increases ghrelin levels like we've talked about. Those things lead to obesity. Well, obesity leads to fat being deposited in our necks and throat areas, changing in the shape of our upper airway system, and so we end up with worsening sleep apnea. This really blew me away when they take sleep apnea patients and put them on the continuous positive airway pressure, the breathing machines that are required as a treatment for sleep apnea. After 2 days, 2 nights really, 2 nights of use of CPAP machine, their ghrelin levels started to decrease. Pretty impactful. So that's why even if, even after patients have lost a lot of weight, we still want them to get another sleep study, even if, but I'm feeling so much better and I'm breathing so much better. Yeah, but I want to make sure it's completely treated, because even if you still have a little bit of sleep apnea, remember 24% of men had it who didn't even have severe obesity, right? So I don't want to miss, just you're feeling better, you have more energy because you've lost all this weight, but you might still have some sleep apnea, and we want to make sure we treat that. Because we want to make sure we have those levels, those ghrelin levels, as low as they can be. So looking at diabetes, 4 nights of sleep deficiency only. They found that fat cells showed a 30% decrease in insulin sensitivity. I mean, these are not like long-term chronic things. This is right away. Our body is responding differently. Insulin sensitivity shown to increase after sleeping time increased by only 45 minutes daily. So they took all these people, they increased their sleep time by 45 minutes a night for just Monday through Friday. And they showed an increase in insulin sensitivity, meaning that the body tissues were more sensitive to insulin and the sugar levels were kept more normal. And so there's, obviously this thought of, there's some connection there between, the fat cells and the insulin sensitivity and, all of this and the sleep and all of this. This is obviously very intricately connected, and we're still learning about all of this. And my hope is that someday, we'll be able to replicate some of these changes with medications and use that knowledge to find more diabetes treatments and so forth. But it's very interesting. So let's look for a second at our circadian rhythm. So this is kind of an example of a normal circadian rhythm, right? You can see the light is daylight, the dark part is nighttime. And if you, start over there at like 9 o'clock, okay? 9 o'clock on the picture, but it's 6 a.m. in the rhythm. That's when the sun's coming up. We get a rise in blood pressure. Our melatonin secretion stops. Your bowels start moving. Your high alertness is 10 a.m. This is why I'm not good at my 8 a.m. meetings. Just figured it out. That's why. No more meetings till 10 a.m. from now on. Noon, we're at peak. We're best coordinated at 2:30. That works perfectly with after-school sports. Fastest reaction time at 3:30. Greatest cardiovascular and muscle strength at 5 o'clock. Highest blood pressure and body temp towards the evening. And then as that darkness sets in, we start getting a melatonin secretion kicking in. Our bowels get suppressed, and we go into, as we go into night, we continue into deep sleep, low body temperatures. This is what is supposed to happen. Now, along with this circadian rhythm are some hormones. So a lot of people know about melatonin, helps you sleep, and your body secretes melatonin naturally. Some people take melatonin if they need a little help sleeping. And it very closely goes with our circadian rhythm. So as that sunlight goes down, that melatonin kicks in. That's one of the triggers, is our light exposure. So you can see why, going back to our beginning, we were talking about that screen time, looking at our phones and our iPads and our computers and even our TV. In the late evening, we're interfering with this normal rhythm.